Alright, thank you so much for checking out the second half of my favorite water type Pokemon. This video is exclusive to Patreon, and I thank you so much for supporting me and just checking out my content. So without any further ado, as a reminder, this list is solely based off of who my favorite Pokemon are based off my preferences, and just whether or not they're good or bad doesn't really matter. It's just a Pokemon that I happen to like. First up on the list is Lapras. I don't think anyone hates Lapras. You can use Lapras as a bulky wall, as a staller. You can use it as an attacker. Lapras is pretty well rounded, though it's mostly known for its high HP and its high defenses, and its ability to use Perish Song. But with me, I don't really believe in I don't like to use Perish Song because chances are I'm going to knock the opponent out in a turn anyway. But Lapras is pretty fun to use, especially when I start realizing I could teach Pokemon moves other than just of what their types were. So I would teach it like Thunderbolt. I liked Body Slam too. There's also the idea that it can use Thunder if I'm using it on a rain team. That is very useful. I mean, yeah, Ice Beam and Surf are pretty solid. I even had in older generations, my Lapras learn Hydro Pump. Yeah, I always had fun with Lapras. It was a pretty cool Pokemon to use. And let's face it, if I was going to use a Pokemon for Surf back in the older days, I would use Lapras. I also like that in X and Y, that when you use Lapras for Surf, you would actually be on a Lapras, as opposed to with other Pokemon, it would just be like this weird little surfboard that you were on. Yeah, so kudos for Lapras for, being, 20 years later and still a solid Pokemon without having a Mega Form, a signature Z move, or any of that. Kudos to you. The next Pokemon on the list is Slowking, which I totally thought that, Slowbro took the shelter off its tail and put it on its head. But no, if a Slowpoke has a King's Rock on its head and the shelter bites that, it becomes a crown, making it Slowking. That's how we saw it work in the anime a couple of times. But apparently if you trade Slowpoke holding the King's Rock, that's how it evolves. And I just really liked it. I looked at it, I thought it was going to be a more powerful, Slowbro evolving. And I kind of was disappointed that Slowking doesn't get a Mega Evolution, but Slowbro does. I would think that if they were going to bring, these Pokemon back into, the main, spotlight, they would do both, but it seems like Slowking got overlooked. And especially going into the Alola region, you would think, a Slowking would probably be a little more prominent, because you would think this Pokemon would have some standing, but no, totally forgotten about. Not even a signature Z move. I would have thought this Pokemon would have done well. It's kind of like a Kahuna in and of itself, but it's also one of the few Pokemon that has been seen being able to speak English. Even if it was telepathically doing so, it could speak English. I always pictured it doing water moves like a Kamehameha. In Gen 3, when I would teach it Water Pulse, I was especially imagining it doing it as a Kamehameha. I like to imagine that, because I taught it Hyper Beam, that it was shooting the Hyper Beam from the jewel on the shelter crown. I like to imagine it was doing that. Like I said, Slowking is a really cool Pokemon, and I like teaching it punching moves as well. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed, Slowking just because it looks awesome. Next on the list is Samurott. Samurott was the first Pokemon, the first time I picked a water type in my main game, which was Pokemon White, unfortunately. I wanted to play Pokemon Black because it sounded cooler, but the Black Dragon was in Pokemon White. For shame. But I liked Samurott because I do like Samurai. If you check out my other videos on this channel, hint hint, you would also know that Samurai Sentai Shinkenger is one of my favorite Sentai series. So of course I'm going to like the Samurai Pokemon as well. It pulls out its shell swords from its forearms, and it can use them in battle, and granted it only uses them really for, Razor Shell, or Shell Blade, or, because between the Japanese version of the anime and the actual game, Razor Shell, yeah, we'll just go with that. I forget, move names, and it's a water type move now. It has, instead of it being a critical hit move, it actually lowers defense, and it's a physical move. So that to me is pretty cool. It has access to Aqua Jet, so even if its speed isn't all that great, it does get that cool priority move. And judging from the looks of it, I was like, yeah, it should learn horn moves. So it does have Mega Horn. Now, I had it knowing Reversal for a time because it is a slower Pokemon, but now that we have the never miss move of Steel Strike, but only Pokemon with horns can use it, I got rid of that and taught it Steel Strike because fairy type Pokemon are a thing, but moreover, I just really like that it can use its horns. Well, horn, I should say. Yeah, everything, like, out of the 3 starters from the Unova region, I just feel Samurott is the coolest looking one, and easily it stands out. Like, even Oshawott stands out amongst the 3, like, it's just looking like it's going to become the best fighter. And Dewott was pretty cool too, like, it was like, oh, it can use, like, a double shell blade, or at least in the anime it could, and then, like, its shell scabbards, and I don't know, like, I just looked at it and knew that that was going to be the Pokemon for me, even though, like, I don't think otters are particularly cool animals, but that's what Samurott is. It is an otter. So, yeah. I mean, it's just very majestic and royal looking. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just drawn to it. There's no rhyme or reason why for this list. It's just these are Pokemon that I like. The next Pokemon on the list is another Gen 1 Pokemon. If you can't tell, I do like my Gen 1 Pokemon a little bit more than others, but when I was looking through, I couldn't help but feel like I don't really care for many of the newer water Pokemon. There are very few and far between that I actually will, like, be like, yeah, it's that one. But Kingler, I do like, you know, like the giant crab Pokemon from Gen 1. Kingler, with that one excessively large claw, and it, for the longest time, was the only Pokemon with the move Crab Hammer. I like to imagine it just smashing into its foes, and just, like, using the giant pincer to, like, hold them in place while it, like, shot. Well, mine knew Bubble Beam, but it's kind of lost that move, but even still, when it shoots, like, water attacks it can, like, hold them down. And we all remember in the anime how powerful of a Pokemon Ash's Kingler was, and he's never used it since, but still, with moves like Guillotine and Bubble at its disposal, it was a pretty solid fighter, and it could actually defeat faster Pokemon. And even though it was only used one time in the Pokemon League, it evolves, like, instantly, so good for that Kingler. But yeah, I did enjoy using Kingler. I really tried my best to keep it as, like, a Pokemon in my rotation, but unfortunately, even having one of the higher attack scores in the game just wasn't enough, because his other stats were just kind of lackluster. And it can be very frustrating when it's like, I know you're good, but unfortunately, the one thing you're good at is about it. So I do like my Kingler, but it doesn't make it into my roster boxes. I'm always excited when I see, like, a Krabby or a Kingler in someone's party, but other than that, it's, like I said, it's one of my favorites, but it's not one that I use very often. Unlike the next Pokemon on the list, Starmie. Starmie was a Pokemon that I was I unexpectedly thought was good. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that great of a Pokemon, to be honest, but I should have known it was good, because we all remember for the Charmander Master Race when we got to Misty, and even though our Charmeleon was at level 30, Misty's level 25, Starmie could use Bubble Beam in one turn and kill you. In fact, Starmie is extremely fast. It's like lightning, and with moves like Surf, Thunderbolt, Psychic, Ice Beam, or even Recover in one of those slots, oh yeah, you're not going to be doing too much damage to Starmie. And with Natural Cure, when it swaps out, there goes the status condition that I had. Yeah, Starmie was a Pokemon that I was very surprised and very pleased with upon using. I kind of wish that one of the internet speculations for Gold and Silver of Stardust was real, where it becomes 3 stars. But you don't see Stone Evolution Pokemon evolving again all that often, or at all. I don't think at all. So, and even though it doesn't really have a Mega Form, like, it doesn't have a Mega Form, it doesn't have a Signature Z move, like, Starmie's still a hard hitter. Like, if you're going for that special sweeper, you're probably going for Starmie. And I really have to say, like, Starmie is, like, a Pokemon that I will go to when, like, for the Battle Tree or even the Battle Royale. Oh yeah, I'll go for Starmie just because I know it's got that speed, I know it's got the special attack to back up that speed. I know I can hit hard with all, you know, its moves. So yeah, that's a Pokemon that I will go for. The next two Pokemon on the list are probably Pokemon that appear on everyone's list, but I don't care. First up is Blastoise. Blastoise was the Pokemon that, like, when I bought Pokemon Blue, I saw the cool cannon turtle on the cover. You probably heard me say this before in other videos, but yeah, Blastoise kind of got me to buy the games. I really didn't want to get into Pokemon. It just didn't look like something I'd be interested in. But the more I kept looking at it, the more it was like aiming its cannon at me and had that like powerful look in its face, it compelled me to buy the game. But then I picked Charmander because Charmander Master Race. But even still, like, I always felt like the starters were like at least closer to being top tier Pokemon, because they're not going to give you a lame Pokemon to go on your journey with, because that's the Pokemon you're probably going to be relying on for the most amount of time. That having been said, though, I always go back to Blastoise. When I saw it had a Mega Form and it had that giant cannon on it, I was pretty excited because, wow, they're giving it a lot more firepower, and it even has mini cannons on its arms. I even taught one how to do Aqua Jet, and I gave it Flash Cannon because it doesn't really need a Steel type move, but I like having Blastoise use its cannons. I remember in Pokemon Stadium when it would like unsheath its shell would open and the cannons would come out, like it would fire off a Hydro Pump, because I do like, you know, to have that move on them sometimes. It would just like be this big blast of water, and even Water Pulse, I believe it uses cannons for as well. But I was always a little sad because there weren't that many moves that would make it actually take its cannons out and use it. It would always just fire it from its mouth, and I was like, did the game developers not realize that we want to see it firing its cannons? But yeah, and I like turtles, so of course I was going to like Blastoise. And on one of my playthroughs for Pokemon Red, because I would just replay through it to farm it for TMs, then I would trade and teach my Pokemon in Blue how to do those TMs when I needed them. I had a team. I decided to use an Ash Ketchum team and only had the starters, only I would let them evolve. And Blastoise is pretty solid, I have to say, and I like teaching it Skull Bash too. In Gen 1 you couldn't get a defense boost with Skull Bash, that's something they added on later on. So you just had to be able to take the hits, and Blastoise could. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a nostalgia factor for me as well, liking Blastoise. The next Pokemon is a Pokemon that when I saw that it becomes a water ground type, it was like, uh-oh, poor Quagsire, because Swampert took its place as being the water ground type that you'll go to. Swampert's pretty powerful. Even if it's meant to be more defense oriented, yeah, Swampert is really powerful. In fact, late into the Gen 3, my team that I would use, it would have Blaziken on it, but it would also have Swampert, and I felt it was kind of noobish to have two starters on the team. But Swampert's good. It's really good. Like, it has a decent enough move pool. It can use fighting type moves, ice type moves. You know, it has like access to some decent normal moves as well. But with moves like you can have it use Surf and Earthquake. You're probably going to be using it more for its defenses, so you don't have to worry if it's attacks or if you're using it as a mixed attacker, because you want it to be able to take hits, and it can. It got a Mega Evolution because all the Gen 3 Pokemon starters got Mega Evolutions. And that changes, it goes from being defense to offense, like right off the bat. And that's also, and with Swift Swim, it's like it totally takes a 180 on how you would use it, which is amazing. But my Swampert, I typically will use as just Swampert. I like teaching it moves like Mud Bomb, because I think it's cool to like imagine it like vomiting up a giant like brown blob at the enemy. You can infer from that whatever you wish. I am really just plainly enjoying that there's a Pokemon that actually uses mud as a skill, like in its movesets. Muddy Water is another cool move, which also looks gross when you're using it in Pokemon Battle Revolution. And I don't know, I mean, and it's kind of ugly too. Like, it doesn't look like it's not a very appealing looking Pokemon, but at the same time, because it's ugly, it's so cool looking as well, if that makes any sense. But yes, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and do make sure to give this video a like over on YouTube. Do make sure to head over to YouTube and check out my channel to subscribe. And again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure, you know, check out my channel, support. Thank you so much.